we know to turn it down? We probably don't.
Sorry now.
Do not disturb.
Gentlemen, this is
Joanne.
How you doing, Joanne?
Hi, John.
This is
Nice to
Greg.
meet you again.
Yeah.
Slightly
Nice
less,
to
slightly less
Gavin, how you
blonde.
doing?
you?
Gavin.
Right.
What's that? I've been told that the mics actually work and that somebody recorded a podcast on them.
I find it hard to believe. I don't trust this.
Yeah, well, we can put them up if you want to listen to the recording afterwards. But
Yeah, sure.
We have backups regardless.
I have the iPad there.
Oh, very good. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Might as well.
Closing that window actually when you're there. Bottom.
Throw these up so like.
Try not to hit the camera.
Oh, that's a bit loud.
You really
make
struggle
myself
with
at home,
windows,
okay.
don't you? Well, I suppose it is home for you. Well,
No, I'm
previously.
supposed to be over there.
Oh, I
I'm
suppose
here.
that's...
The
I meant
interviewer.
DCU.
No, I know. Believe me, DCU is very different now
Yeah,
to when I was.
Well, we'll
here.
get to that, hopefully.
Yeah, a lot of people like a lot of
If
people
you're
say
looking
it
for
was
good
just-
stories, I'm not the person. I'm afraid.
Well, a lot of people just say that DCU was a field.
Yeah, that
last
seems...
time
I think
they were
about
there.
3 of the RCE people we've had.
I'm
in.
not
Yeah.
that old.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. As I say, most people that we talk to. But,
Wait, would you consider Ian Dempsey old, would you?
Huh? I
Oh.
consider him older than I am.
Oh,
See,
very diplomatic.
Greg is trying to start beef with every personality in
Yeah,
Irish
I do
media at
like
the
to stir a
moment.
pot of it.
Yeah.
Well, how does that look?
Looks great, I think. The angle.
Yeah, sure. Look,
We'll see if it works. We should have got a tripod.
we have.
Early days.
We're only dabbling in the video.
Dabbling, that's the
we,
word,
we
dabbling.
we're only audio is our mainstay. Right. Okay. Yeah, that should be all right. Actually, I'm gonna grab one.
Have I got 3 of you coming at me?
Yep.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that's what I always think. Like, is it intimidating to get?
But we're not intimidating. Like, look at us.
us.
Just 3 little
I mean,
pretty boys.
especially when you had the blonde hair as well.
That was,
remember that,
was
Joanne?
frightening. I do.
Yeah.
That was frightening. I'll give you that.
Ah, so you've seen it, yeah.
In
No,
case, people
go for
didn't, in case people didn't know, this is not the first time that myself, Greg, and Joanne have met. We were at with Mary McAleese's Women in Leadership program,
That's right.
and it was specifically about sport. And you were hosting the talk that was on. But at the time, Greg had his lovely bleached blonde hair.
Did I ever explain why I had blonde hair?
I think you did, but
Probably
you know,
did, yeah.
it's
Alright, like
very
it
nice.
wasn't just like, I had a bit of a breakdown and I just said, you know what?
You'll be Owen Mulligan. Quarter life crisis.
No, Gavin and I did Beg Bar Steel, which was a charity race across Europe, and did it to highlight,
Yeah, it was.
That's pathetic. Don't go there. You need a better excuse than that. We'll get a better story. We'll work on one together, okay?
Oh.
Yeah, well,
Fair
after
enough.
this, we'll brainstorm and we can come up with a better reason for why you had bleached
Hopefully I
blonde
never have to come up with an excuse for it again, because
hair.
it'll never be blonde. Although that was May? April,
May, yeah.
And still a bit blonde.
Anyway, in case you don't know, you're still listening to In Conversation with the best interview radio show around, I'd say.
Probably.
Probably.
But that's just, it could be biased.
We could be biased, you never know. And today we have the lovely sports broadcaster Joanne Cantwell in studio. Joanne, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So as I always start these interviews with, what was the initial thought? I mean, we met back obviously in, I think it was April or May, and I actually first broached the subject with you, but what was the first thought when I asked you to come on the show?
Oh my goodness. It was sure, absolutely, yeah. And also jealous because I'm looking at these studios and they're amazing.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't have been impressed with our last studio. Luckily now we are actually coming to you from the brand new DCU FM
It's
studio.
actually our debut here.
Yeah, it is. It is actually our first time recording here, and yeah, it's a lot better than our old one.
I have to say the view is amazing.
Yeah.
Just out there as well.
Yeah.
At the back door.
And
You
all-
can't look at the view because if you do, nobody will be able to hear you because the mic is in front of you.
Oh, look.
You need to
Ultimate
switch to this
professional.
side.
Every day is a
You're
school
getting
day.
told, yeah. Yes, so Joanne, for anybody that doesn't know, would you like to introduce yourself a little and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a former journalism student here from just a few years ago. 97 to 2001, I think it is. And while I was in here, I started doing sports bulletins in FM 104. Then my work experience in journalism, back then it was a 4-year course, I think it can be either now. And our last semester was work experience, which I did in TV3. And then I immediately went on to freelance in TV3, full-time TV3, and then on to RT, and now I work in RT Sport.
And you want to tell us what's coming up in 2019 for you?
Loads of different things.
Yeah, I suppose
Give me a bit more specific.
But
on it.
maybe the most notable or the most highlighted recently.
You mean the Sunday game? Yeah, I'm going to be
do.
presenting the Sunday game next year.
Yeah, very
now
good.
that
Taking
the-
over from our guest previous week, Michael Lester.
Mhm.
You're making me do it twice now. I have to follow in his footsteps next year. And now you're making me do it as well. It's not exactly
yeah, no,
easy.
we asked him for like did he have any advice for you handing over, but he said there's nothing that I could tell Joanne, so I suppose that's the highest compliment you could have given him.
Well, he's being kind. Michael's do you know what Michael's brilliant for doing is giving you advice and you nearly don't even notice he's doing it. It's really good, and he's always been like that.
Mm-hmm.
He might every now and then go, do you know what, actually if I could just say one little thing, and that would be it, but it would never. He's so kind. He always has been.
And there was no passing of the torch moment really between the two of you.
No, but he was the very first person to ring me when it was announced, and I'd say he did that on purpose because he knew it would mean a huge amount to me. It was really, really nice.
Right, we'll talk more about the Sunday game, but we'll go back to the start. So, had you always had an interest in journalism, broadcasting, all that kind of stuff?
I had an interest in sport. It started with sport, and like anybody who really loves sport, they want to stay involved somehow and make a career out of it. And only a very few people are going to become a top professional sports person. And I loved watching sport. I loved listening to sport. So yeah, it was very early. I was about 12 when I decided that's what I wanted to do.
You weren't too unsuccessful an athlete now.
Well, I think at 12, did you say that your perfect job would have been a mixture of George Hamilton's and Des Lynam's?
Where did you get that from? Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, I did. I never wanted to be a commentator. That's way beyond me. But Des Lynam, people think it was because of who Des Lynam was. You're far too young to remember Des Lynam. But
I'd know the name all right.
he was considered, and this isn't why I wanted his job, he was considered the cool, I think he was even voted BBC's broadcaster.
He was Match of the Day
of
host, wasn't he?
He was, but he also, there was a programme called, I feel so old now. There was a programme called Grandstand that was on, and it was on every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and it covered every sport, and I just love every sport. And they did have an RT version called Sports Stadium, but it wasn't on as often and didn't go on for as many years. And George used to do that. Actually, Michael used to do it as well, but not as often as George did. So what I wanted was to be presenting a show with lots of different sports. So that's why it wasn't actually because Des Lynam is such a great broadcaster. I just wanted his job.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It's not a bad job to have. Yes, so you got your first kind of experience with broadcasting and stuff in FM 104. How did that gig come about?
Came about here. In DCU, there was a little ad up, I think in the Henry Grattan, no, it was in the Henry Grattan building where we used to do most of our classes, and they were looking for a weekend person to do the bulletins. I had no experience whatsoever, but I just kind of threw in a CV and hope for the best, and they'd had real problems getting anybody, and definitely getting anybody with experience. So most people who were applying had no experience, but I had a really good sports CV, so they just gave me a go.
And I suppose the fact that you did just say that you love every sport, that kind of worked in your favour, I suppose, because bulletins cover everything, not just the main ones.
Yeah, I think it was, to be honest, at the time I was still playing with Dublin, and the idea of having, I think, an inter-county footballer on their team seemed appealing. I think that's what it was. That's the impression I got. And also, they were completely desperate. They couldn't get anybody. So that was the main reason.
Very good.
Desperation.
And so what, you were working weekends with FM 104 mainly, wasn't it? It was bulletins,
yes.
I think.
Yeah, it was bulletins. Once you get into any of these places, you end up doing a bit of everything. So it was bulletins on Saturday and Sundays. But then when there was somebody sick, you'd come in during the week when my lectures weren't on, of course. And then you'd start going to maybe to press conferences, say if the rugby team was being announced for the Six Nations, you'd go along to something like that.
Very good. Yeah, and then from FM 104 to TV3.
Yes, well, I kind of did both of them at the same time for about a year and a half. Okay,
was there one that you preferred over the other, TV versus radio?
It's different then to now. Now I love them both because they're so incredibly different. Then I was really just doing bulletins, so you'd have more to do with a TV bulletin than you would with a radio bulletin.
Yeah, of course, because you're in front of the camera.
Yeah, so at that stage, it's not even being in front, it's pictures. There's a whole lot more, but like pictures change everything. Some people think that TV is just radio with pictures, but it's not. It's an entirely different medium. And now that I'm doing programming, they're even more different, and that's why I love them both. And I feel really selfish and greedy because I get to do them both, and I just love them both, and they're so different.
Yeah. So when you went to TV3, obviously you went in initially on your placement,
Yes.
and I think was it within a year you were full time there in TV3?
No, I wouldn't say I was freelancing, getting an awful lot of hours. So I would have been doing freelance, and then within a year I actually got offered a full-time job with FM 104, which I took, and I was doing that, and there was a good lot for about a year. I was doing mornings in FM 104 at the weekends, and then hightailing it over to TV3 to do the afternoon evening shift in TV3. But then I got the full-time job in FM 104, and I didn't want to give up the TV entirely, so I did mornings Monday to Friday, and then I think it was on a Thursday when I finished I'd go over to TV3, and I worked till about 11:30, so at night, just trying to keep everything in. And then pretty soon after that I got a full-time job with TV3, so the full-time with FM 104 I'm afraid wasn't very loyal because I left after a couple of months.
Some bad blood there, no?
Oh God, no,
Okay.
no,
We're
no.
okay now.
No, there was never bad blood.
That's not what I heard,
You're such a liar. No, Hazel Nolan is. She's still, I think, the head of sport in there, and she was the one who gave me my break, and she's brilliant.
I was going to ask, from when you went into the industry then with FM 104 to now, do you think there's any difference between like barriers, or like how far you can progress, how quickly you can progress from then and now?
Yes, it's terrifying how much it has changed. I think everybody knows that because I always compared, the newspaper industry. It had its big change kind of probably 20 years ago, from around when I was in college. We went from everybody getting newspapers to everybody not bothering getting newspapers and apps and reading online. And the last sort of 7 to 10 years, it's gone that way with radio because now everybody's on their podcasts and various things that I don't even understand. People are getting all their things from, and there are so many more. When I was starting, there were your local radio stations, then there were your national stations. Now
There wasn't an in between, I suppose.
Oh, there are just so many now, and I presume it means an awful lot of people are taking an awful lot of advantage of people. I could be wrong. It means there are more opportunities. It just means it's much, much harder, I would imagine,
There's a lot
to get
of,
through.
I suppose, internships and unpaid work, but that's not really sustainable for those. Like, if we're at our age, we are students, we can't really go by on an internship and get through college life like that, can we?
No, I suppose it is a tough one. You're in a position where, you need experience, and I suppose to get your foot on that ladder, you do need that internship to get in there and get your foot in the door. But I suppose when comes the point
that you say, like, okay, I actually need paid work.
Yeah.
And they're taking it. I presume there'll be lots of places that would take advantage of that as well, and they'll know. And there's so many people, and there's so many people who want to do this line of work and who are trying to get in, and they also put a lot of pressure on people.
You have to kind of make yourselves available. It can't be like at your own leisure nearly at this stage. And like another thing that like a lot of our guests say is like it is about luck, the right time.
Yeah,
right
it seems right time, right place. I suppose with the people we have interviewed, there was a degree of that, of course, and it was kind of a changing of a guard. But I think the average age now of the media industry is is certainly a lot lower than it would have been.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I suppose on the other hand, you have this facility here. I don't think you had this in your time, no? Not at all.
yeah, actually,
Was there a DCU FM when you
There
were
was.
here?
I'm pretty sure it was once a week. Was it possibly during Rag Week? That's what I think. Yeah, I could be wrong, but not once a week. Once a year is what I mean. Sorry, for a week during the year. And
like the intervarsities or something like that.
Oh, yeah, it could have been actually, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually didn't make as much of it as I should have, but I was playing a lot of football at the time.
Of course, you were on a scholarship here to DCU.
Just for 1 year I was on the scholarship,
Okay.
yeah, because it was still in their very early stages. So I was playing a lot of football, and I then got my job as well, and I was trying to work as much as I could.
Yeah,
I was just thinking there, you must have been just very busy with college and the football, the radio.
Yeah, sure, journalism was that like 10 hours a week? It must have been absolutely... Says
Are you communications?
I was waiting for that.
Yeah,
Like
do you know what?
you
We'll just
left
leave
yourself
that
wide
there. Because everybody knows what I'm saying without having to say it.
Yeah, well, especially if you went to DCU, everybody knows exactly what you're saying. But obviously you did make your breakthrough in the industry and you ended up in the national broadcaster not so long ago. What was the transition from TV3 to RT like then? Was there any differences really in the work that you were doing?
Massive differences, because when I was in TV3 we had very few rights to anything. It's changed an awful lot, and when I was in TV3 it was only a few years old as well. It was a brand new TV station, so I was so lucky to be able to start so young in a place and to start somewhere where it was so new, because there aren't the same sort of luxuries now. They look after you, and it was really a brilliant place to start. But it's just not the same as the national broadcaster. It's a new place. It's different to somewhere, and in many ways better, because you don't have the same things quite often to fall back on that you might do within RT. And so we had rights to Champions League on one of the nights for some of the years when I was there, and they were the only rights that we had to anything. There were many years where we weren't even allowed to take shots of Ireland training soccer. They wouldn't even let. I don't know how that came about. They decided no. We weren't getting in there. We weren't even allowed into press conferences. Whereas now, of course, everybody wants as much publicity as possible, and they wouldn't mind doing that. And then when I switched to, so we had a nightly show called Sports Tonight that we had to fill with no rights to anything every single half an hour, every single night in Monday to Friday, and so that in itself was fun, because you're trying to make up packages with very little, but it means you have to become inventive, and it means you have to do things the hard way. And then I went to RT, and when I went to RT, and things have changed now, they had rights to so much, and it was all about sports programming, and I went straight away in. I think I was working on the National League Highlights programme, which is now called League Sunday, but I think it was Sunday Sport at the time. And then into Championship, and I was working on Champions League, and I was working on the Premiership, which was still on the go at that stage. So it was
Premier Soccer Saturday, I remember it so well.
Well, it was the Premiership first, and then it became the Premier Soccer Saturday.
You probably don't even remember it being the Premiership, do you?
No, I don't actually remember I remember Premier Soccer Saturday, and it had the best intro music ever. And they used to actually, I remember RT did actually have rights to show live games.
Yes,
that's
right.
Yeah.
And then
That's
that went
long.
away, because I remember just flicking it on and just being so surprised that there was a Premier League game live.
That was quite short-lived, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was only a few.
Yeah.
It was on for a few years now, I think. But
the way the rights have gone
Oh,
now,
God,
like you'd want to be paying a small fortune to get them now. When you were in RT, like very much like the rest of your career, you're doing a bit of everything, like Against the Hedge, Olympic coverage, obviously the GAA as well. Was there anything that you preferred, or did you just kind of love it all?
No, I really do. It's so greedy, isn't it?
There has to be a sport you don't like, John.
Huh?
There has
Cricket,
to be
come on, cricket.
Nobody
I
likes
like
cricket.
cricket. I like
Bullshit.
When I was in college, and I don't get to see it that much, I don't really watch it that much anymore because it just isn't the time. But when I was in college, there was a South African team, and they had this fielder. Is anybody interested in cricket?
No.
Is this? I don't even know why I'm bothering. But there's this fielder called John T. Rhodes who played. Look it up and you'll get some videos. And I remember watching with my dad, maybe in the early 90s, so I would have been very young. And again, I had no interest until I saw South Africa and this guy. And you know when you see hurling goalkeepers and you think, how the hell can they stop that slitter going in?
Yeah.
He'd be diving all over the field and the hand going out here, and he'd somehow arrive with the ball in his hand. So.
I can't stand cricket. I'm sorry, Joanne. It's just too boring. My dad watches it now, and he'll sit down for like 3 or 4 hours and watch it. But like, it's just so slow moving.
No, when John T was playing, ask your dad about
Is your
John
dad
T.
employed?
Yeah, he does actually have a job. Yeah, I don't know how he finds time to fit the cricket in now. To be
He
honest,
mightn't have a job if his employer listens to this.
Joanne, we were starting off in FM104, TV3, RT. It happened in such a short amount of time, it seems. Were you ever starstruck by people you met? Were there just moments of, wow, I can't believe I'm here, I can't believe I'm doing this? Or did you just kind of go with the flow?
No, isn't that weird? No. People are people. And people who are brilliant at something, say like a brilliant footballer, or say like a hurler like Joe Canning. He's just really lucky that he was born with a talent and a work ethic. I mean, it's not just the talent, it's the work ethic, and that he got through to where he is. And that's what everybody's like. I mean, it's probably a massive dollop of naivety for me, which I still have, that I just look at somebody.
That's a great asset to
Yeah,
have.
it would
No,
be.
but I think like when we started the show, obviously we started interviewing our mates. That's how we started out, and then like Greg had the idea of actually trying to reach out to some people of note and stuff like that. When we did start, we were awestruck. Like our first big interview was Ross Munley, this Greg's childhood hero.
Oh,
Greg was like a kid at Christmas that day.
I've met Ross a good few times.
He's very difficult, isn't he?
Oh, it was media training galore. Sorry, Ross.
But like as I feel like as our interviews have gone on, we have become less so inclined to be starstruck like that. Like it was like at the start it was, and like when we interviewed like somebody like the two Johnnies, like who are like kind of heroes of mine and Greg's as well.
Jeez, that's a big stretch. Like I like the lads, I'm very fond of them, but a hero now.
But like nowadays it's like, because I'd be the one to send out the emails and stuff like that when I give the lads the news that we have a guest coming on. Nowadays it's like, okay, I mean this week it's Ian Dempsey, they're like, oh cool, that should be fun. Whereas at the start it would have been like, we would have been like little children.
Yeah, like the first time we went out to RT, it was Joe Duffy, wasn't it?
Joe Duffy
That
was
was the first time,
yeah.
And like just even going into the radio centre and like waiting in the lobby, and it's like who was Tuberty walked out behind us, but we were actually too terrified to move from a couch in case security came and kicked us out.
I wanted
that Colin actually wanted to run after Tuberty, and we were like,
Yeah,
stop
no,
I
the
still feel like that in places, because I always get lost. I'm afraid I'm going to go into a place I'm not supposed to be in. But places scare me more than people. People are people, no matter what they happen to be lucky enough
I
to
think
do.
it's just when we got in, you see the RT sign. It's like, because it is kind of like RT is probably still at this stage the pinnacle of Irish media. Like this is where the top players are. So for us starting out, it is kind of like a massive thing to walk in and be interviewing some of those top names.
I think our studio could be nicer than what was that? RT Gold.
RT Gold, yeah.
That was
That's a grim.
I've never been into the RT Gold
You're lucky.
studios. I can't comment.
Avoid it if you can, Joanne.
Your studio is superb. It's really, really good.
Top of the notch.
Oh, it's very nice.
They really have nailed it. I love these. Well, obviously people that are listening can't see, but we have these lovely foam soundproofing things on the wall. Actually, it's just like nice. Anyways. So the big gig obviously came along, the Sunday game. When did the call come down? Who did the call come from? What was the thought when it came down?
Well, I think it was Ryle was head of sport at the time, so a lot of it would have come down to him. But when it's an iconic show like that, it comes down to more than just the head of the department. Like D Forbes, everybody is involved. Like it goes all the way up to the top. I've no idea how they come down to it, but there were just a couple of chats. And
it was quite a quick turnaround as well, because obviously they announced that Michael was stepping down, and I think even when Michael stepped down, he even said at the time, it'll probably be announced in a week or two. At what point in this kind of 2-week period or 3-week period even, did you get the call? Did you know yourself?
Oh no, I already knew at that stage.
Oh, you already knew at that
I
stage?
already knew at that stage, yeah. But other people didn't. And did Michael tell you he was driven?
Yeah.
He did. Okay, he told you that. That's the reason it was announced, because Michael couldn't take it anymore. He said, "Just tell everybody who it is."
Yeah.
So that's the reason, yeah.
And then he said he was getting people coming up to him all summer saying like, "Oh, how are you enjoying retirement?" Not knowing.
Yeah,
that he
it was
was
basically
actually
an obituary the whole time.
He's the only person to have retired at least twice.
Yeah.
It's awful.
But you
And he's still not retired.
No,
No,
technically.
he's not. He won't be. Sure,
It's February.
He's doing the All Stars and everything.
Yeah. But you have like it's not like it's going to be a baptism of fire. You've already presented some of the shows.
Yeah.
So you've had your experiences with Brawley's,
The
and
boys.
all the guys. Wow, what was it like being in the studio with them for the first time, given that they have this kind of, aura about them?
I'd already done a few things with each of them. I'd done a few sideline bits and pieces, and Joe does a bit. I do a show on a Saturday with Des Cahill on Radio 1. Exactly, yeah. So he has done regular bits. So I'd done it, so it's not really like, it wasn't really anything. It was kind, it was just it was the same, and I'd done one a couple of years ago as well. So no, it was absolutely fine. There was
Do you have anything planned in case one of them steps out of line?
They wouldn't do such a thing.
They know better at this stage.
Yeah.
Has it ever felt like minding children?
Absolutely not.
They do
Move
go-
on.
they do
No,
go-
honestly, no.
Joanne, just like obviously when you're coming out, you're doing like most of your work live. A lot of your work live. Do nerves ever come into it for yourself? Like, do you ever get jitters, anything like that?
Strangely, no. Which isn't necessarily a good thing. I get nervous when I'm doing my prep.
Okay.
I'm always afraid that I won't have enough time to get enough prep done, because it is the corner. So even if you're covering a subject that you really, really know, you still need to prep it because you probably don't know it as much as you think you do. So I might get nervous while I'm prepping, thinking, oh, I'll never have time to get everything done, and then my head won't be right. Once you start, that's it. I'm in the middle of it, and it's fine. The only exception to that is when we do the All-Stars, and the director has this beautiful, huge stage at the convention centre with all these fancy things, and he wants to show it off, so he decides at the start we should walk out a very long distance, and I'm wearing a very long dress and high heels. So I get nervous that I'm going to fall on my face on national TV, but that would be about it.
Any other kind of little things like that, any dreams that kind of haunt you at times? No? Maybe walking from the makeup studio.
I knew Mary Hannigan is terrible. Mary Hannigan of the Irish Times, I'm sure you know, she's one of the best sports journalists that we have, and she did a piece for me. And she got that out of me. That was in the early stages in TV3. I used to.
I'll just give our listeners the quote if that's all right. Yeah. Well, I'll paraphrase. Basically, it was you were having a recurring dream that you were walking from the makeup studio to the actual studio with just a brown. Yes. And you'd arrive out.
Well, I'm pretty sure I had trousers as well, but I had no top on.
Thanks for clarifying that. But on that one, when we interviewed Michael, he gave us a little anecdote where one time Colin O'Rourke and Spillane swapped jackets by mistake, and they didn't realise till they were actually out live on air, and it was a bit tight on him or whatever.
No, it was Michael.
Oh, was it?
Michael what happened was, it was this summer. Yeah, what happened was, I think it was in Thurles, and it was, this summer of hurling has been just ridiculous, and it was one of the best matches, and they got so, it was obviously football, because it was Pat Spillane's jacket, so it was incredible. What match was it? It was one of the really good games, so that narrows it down. Yeah. And they got really excited, and they weren't doing what they were supposed to do, because when it's getting towards the end, they're supposed to sit in and get all their wires redone. And obviously they were being bowled as usual.
I couldn't imagine that, no.
And no, it was the hurling, but I tell you how I know. Sorry for being all over the place, because the hurling match was on first and was being followed by the football. So
that's why it was.
So Michael grabbed the nearest jacket, and it happened to be Pat's. Pat had left his down. The football panel were coming in afterwards, and he wore Pat's jacket, and then he said, in fairness to him, he said in the middle of it, the game was so exciting that I'm after putting on the wrong jacket. It wasn't as bad as though a few weeks earlier, apparently. Pat Spillane had taken Colin O'Rourke and took his keys halfway home.
Michael told us this one as well. Hopefully you won't have any trouble like that now. I don't think the lads will mistake any of your own jackets.
There is an image we won't get out of our head.
Probably fit though.
Yeah. Similar bit.
Okay, sorry.
You are now on my bad books.
I thought I was already there, but I'm glad that we have that cleared up.
No.
Do you really have to piss off every single guest we have?
It's not intentional. It just kind of works out. Yeah, it's my nature.
Speaking of getting excited in the studio, do you ever think, or do you ever have any worry that bias in teams that you support might come through in pieces of work, or do you think you're good at keeping a level head and reporting the facts?
It wouldn't be a bias for a team I support, because again my head works really weird, and especially when it comes to GAA, I managed to not support my own county. I actually just love the game so much, and because I think it's because it's so local, and you I feel an attachment to all of the teams. I always want the team who is playing better to win, regardless of which I know is a weird thing, and I think that actually annoys some people, because GAA is so much about the parish and so much about the heart. But I just love the game, and I have so much respect for all the people playing it, that I actually just want whoever deserves to win. Now there are times when you kind of feel somebody deserves to win and maybe they don't on the day, and then it can become an issue. I mean, who doesn't want Mayo to win the All-Ireland Championship? Do you know what I mean? So you have to be your columnist having a look.
You're going to do it anyway.
I do. I think it'd be great for him to finally bridge that gap.
You've brought it up on the past two shows. Go on. You can do your little bit.
Go on, go for it.
So Colin is from Waterford, but he's a wannabe. He goes to all the Dublin games.
My dad is from Skerries in North County Dublin, and he's been taking me to games since 2008.
You don't have to justify yourself. Hold on, but you do have to. What jersey do you wear?
To which?
Just in general.
Oh, Waterford jersey.
Oh, well then, what's
no,
the
you
issue?
do wear Dublin. Don't give me that shit.
I don't wear it. I wear it to matches, Dublin matches.
I have often seen you going around the place in Dublin gear.
to Dublin matches. I go to Dublin matches.
Greg, I don't think you're ever going to win this argument.
I don't think so either.
I think it's bollocks.
You brought this up to Ian Dempsey, Michael Astor,
and now Joanne Cantwell. I have all those names on my side.
No, like, you're from Waterford. Whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, you should be following the Waterford footballers.
Do you support the Waterford footballers?
I try to.
No, that's a lie.
Well, to be fair now.
If you tell me a story about how your teacher played for Waterford, that doesn't count. Like,
no, but to be fair, I work weekends and all games are on weekends.
Somehow you still manage to get off for Dublin matches.
And now, leave him alone.
See, look, okay, and I gave you your chance to pitch it. It's the nail in the coffin. This discussion is over. You're not allowed to bring it up on a show ever again.
Well,
I don't think the nail is in the coffin. Joanne, basically, you can't just pick and choose who you want to support. Like.
Well, can I come in here?
Yeah, please.
I think you're from where you're from, and we have had a massive argument at home because we live in Kildare and we're both from Dublin. And as far as I'm concerned, my children are lily whites. You're from where you're from. That doesn't mean that when Dublin are playing somebody, like when we went up to the women's final, they were shouting for Dublin because Dublin were playing Cork. But if Dublin were playing Kildare, they'd be shouting for Kildare because that's where they're from. So they're from Kildare, but they still have Dublin roots, and there's absolutely no issue if they choose.
The day that Waterford qualify into Division 1 and they play Dublin in a football game, I'll support Waterford.
You're a bollocks. Like. You're actually a bollocks. Like.
There's nothing wrong with supporting a team and admiring players. Like
no, don't get me wrong. I admired so much that Dublin team, but at the same time, like, I'm not going to go out there with a Dublin jersey in my back and going, "Come on, dear Mo, yeah." I'm not going to do that. Like.
Well, he hasn't been there for a year, anyways.
Well, he's played at the weekend.
But I don't want to bring up this argument, but it's the same with Anton. Like, if you support a team over in England for the soccer, like,
don't foreign sports. No, I'm only joking.
John, any other favourite teams? Are there any teams that you really just root for besides, at GAA, you don't support anyone per se?
Let's have a think through this. I'm sure there are, and I can't quite think. Come back to me. We'll think about it. I'll think about it.
Who's going to win the Premier League? Who's going to win the Champions League?
No, do you know what? Premier League. I don't. I have sympathies for Arsenal because I always liked the way Arsene Wenger did things. He's obviously gone now. I always appreciated that they tried to play football and that for a long time they managed their money better. They didn't in more recent years. But it would be sympathies rather than support. When I was younger, I loved Leeds. That's born out of. If you're from certain areas, you can tell if somebody's when they're born. If they were kind of grew up in the 80s, they're Liverpool. If they kind of had their teenage years in the 90s, they're Manchester United. But my teenage years were in the 90s, and I hated Manchester United. So their main rivals early on were Leeds. So
they're doing quite well now. They're top of the championship. They could be making a comeback.
Well,
any other sports, like, I suppose, do you follow the rugby much? Would you follow Leinster rugby?
Yeah. Well, all the Irish provinces, I genuinely want to do well. Yeah.
Unless they're playing each other, then.
Well, no. Even then, again, it's like the GAA. It's a local thing. It's whoever deserves to win. I want them to win. I know that seems like a sitting on the fence, but it's actually not. I really believe that. Now, if Ireland are playing somebody else, it's totally different. I never understand, this great rivalry between Munster and Leinster in particular. And if Leinster are playing Saracens, Munster fans want Saracens to win. I don't get that.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that myself now. I would be of the same page where I'd root for the provinces, lest they be playing Munster. I'd obviously support Munster then. But if they're playing a team from France or a team from Italy, I would obviously support the provinces.
And it works the other way as well. Leinster fans do the same thing. They support the opponents. I don't get that. But then again, I think I'm rather odd.
It's always that kind of way. You kind of just don't like your neighbours, don't you?
Yeah, it's kind of like me with Dublin. Like, yeah.
Where is it you're from? Are you from Laois?
Yeah,
they're not even neighbours.
Huh? Well, they're like.
I think it's really sweet that you think it's a rivalry.
Sit down, Greg.
If I was going to be an interviewed, I'd walk out right now, but I'm not.
You've just gotten mugged off so many times on this.
Here, would you stop? You get mugged off on a daily basis by half our guests. Like, Sue Johnny's ripped you to shreds, and you're lucky they didn't see you at the live podcast.
I just take pride that I'm from Cavan, 5 All-Ireland Championships.
You always say this, guy.
I take a passing interest.
I've seen you kick a football, you're not able.
I'm a
Speaking of, we're also in the presence of a former All-Ireland champion.
No, I wasn't. No. They won them all. No, they won them all after.
Yeah.
I set the foundation.
She was there from Division 3 to Division 1.
Yeah.
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 Okay, I have some bad sources.
And then you kind of stepped away at the wrong time, of course. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I stepped away probably the year before. Mick Bowen is the manager. He was the manager back in the early 2000s as well, and I stepped away because work it's not possible to do.
Was that a hard
a
decision
job like this?
for work versus the sport?
Yes and no. There was a change in manager around the time. We had this unbelievable manager who just developed this incredible bond, like nothing I've ever actually seen in any other team. It was just phenomenal. And there was a change of guard, and then I had 1 year with another guy, so it was easier than it would have been had this same manager been in charge. So it was made, the decision was made, not that it was much as
If it was now, this is a big if Gaelic football was like a paid sport, would have probably turned it the other way, would it have?
Oh, possibly,
I
yeah.
don't think so. Maybe in the future, who knows?
Well, Joanne, you started off on the Dublin senior team at 16.
Yeah.
That must have been a baptism of fire, I suppose. Like obviously going into a team, a senior setup at that age, you were quite young. How was that?
See, it's quite different for girls because girls obviously develop sooner and they reach their peak much.
Of course, Lawson was 13 when
Yeah, and she wouldn't be the only one. I mean, our legend on Dublin was Christina McGinty, and she would have played for Dublin at 13. Now, 13 is still unusual. I would have played club football, senior club football at 13 for the first time, but to play into counties would still be unusual. But 16 isn't that unusual.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not very, very common, but it wouldn't be that unusual. Was it a baptism of fire? I was already playing senior club football, so obviously
Was a step up?
Yeah, there was a big step up. It was more, but initially it was trying to get into the team. And
Well, I'm pretty sure you established yourself quite quickly. You
No,
were
probably
starting
would've-
full back within, I think, 2 years, was it?
yeah. See, to me that's not really, but obviously it is. You're
Well,
dead
again,
right.
obviously,
Obviously
full
it
back is quite a prominent position, and
Yes, and I wouldn't have been a fullback. They was really plugging a gap. They didn't have it. I kind of came in as a forward. If you ask me what my best position would be, it would probably be centre forward actually. But they needed somebody. I think it must have happened in a challenge game or something. I don't know how. And I started playing cornerback, and then I was moved in to fullback. But yeah, it seems like so long ago. It seems like somebody else. I feel like I'm lying and talking about somebody else. It's
Greg, you
terrible.
nearly made it to a county team before, didn't you? The Laois Hurlers?
that could be a massive stretch now on both her behalves. I was on a couple of development squads and stuff, but
Do you think Laois hurling would be different today if you would?
we would have had our first sleeve there.
First
yeah.
league.
Was this under Cheddar?
Prior Cheddar days, I'm a bit old.
Really?
Yeah. No,
How
Cheddar.
old, how old do you think Greg is?
I'd say 37.
I can see that, yeah.
What are you, about 24, 25?
25.
Oh, bang on, yeah.
No, Cheddar would have been actually development squad 1-2 years beneath me. So there was big rejuvenation of Laois hurling there for a while, and great people like Pat Critchley, who obviously won an All-Star and stuff, got really involved and set up a development program. It was called the Satanta program, and it basically encouraged like a lot of the past players or people, kind of just people still on the fringes. Or at the time, it was around the time of the downturn and stuff, and a lot of players were kind of like struggling for work and stuff. So the GA got them involved, sent them around to schools and to these different programs, and it was great. And Cheddar came on board. I think he was about 2 age groups under me, and I think he brought them to a Tony Forrestal final, which is like the All Ireland of under 14.
Yeah.
And then I think he stayed with them up until maybe minor, and then I think he stepped away. And then obviously he got the Laois job, and he was fantastic for the whole county. I've never seen anything like it in terms of hurling for the county, where you were driving across the hurling in Laois is quite south of the county, but there were signs everywhere, Cheddar's Army and stuff like this, and it was only league, but the whole county was just rallying behind it, and the football was at quite a low at the time as well.
Yeah.
So, there was a 2 or 3 year period there that you didn't know which was going to be higher, whether it was going to be the Laois hurlers or Laois footballers. And, for me coming up, Laois was a football county. That's what I was always told, and I was led to believe. And then, you had this thing with Cheddar, and it was amazing.
So if it wasn't for a dodgy knee, Laois would be kings of hurling at the moment then.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
Is that what it was, a dodgy knee?
It was dodgy knee, John, yeah.
Oh.
Ray Moran looked after me in the sports surgery, but he couldn't work his magic, unfortunately.
So you had to stop playing?
Yeah, Yeah.
Completely.
I've had. Oh, jeez, I have to do this on the radio. I've had a couple of operations on it, and no, it's not. It's not. Although I am planning one final hurrah at it. I said I'd give it one last go. So I was with Ray about 18 months ago now, and he said I could. It seemed strong from all the MRIs and stuff. Give it a go. So I went to the leash. Well, prior to him actually being leash manager, John Suger. And I got a plan from John and worked at it there for a while. So
Well done you.
he
Could
said
be back on a field somewhere soon.
How long since you though kind of practiced with the hurling and sort of?
Oh well, I go up to the ball wall
So you're doing it all the time?
most weeks. But that's only just keep me sane. That's my that's my meditation.
2019, Joe McDonald.
No, 2020. We had a talk about this, and he said if it's going to be one last hurrah, you have to give it every chance.
Yeah,
So
make sure you do it right.
The big return.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Now I don't know what I'm going to be like when I was last playing. I was midfield. But I don't know. I think height could come into it now.
Nippy corner or forward?
I don't know if I have the nippiness.
Midfielders still aren't in hurling. Still aren't necessarily huge.
I suppose true. I suppose Colin Galvin's not very, quite small.
When you gave up, obviously, Dublin to work on your career and stuff like that, were you still playing club sports?
Yeah, I still played club for a good few, maybe about 5 years after that. I gave it up too soon. I started getting fed up because I'd arrive not just late to training, but I'd arrive late to matches, and that was really hard because in this job there are deadlines, but there are still things that take you past the deadlines that you have to do. So you never know, like if you're down doing a story in Cork or over in Mayo or whatever, and you don't know when you're going to finish, so it's very, very difficult to.
And has coaching ever tempted you?
Not so far because of the time.
Even at a local level.
But now that I've
Underage should be coming up soon enough
yeah,
for you.
two little ladies. I can't get them to go to. We live around the corner from the GA club. I can't get them to go.
Oh.
I'll get the littler one. She's 4. She'll go. But the
And is
7-year-old.
there another sport that's taking their fancy, or is it aside from sport?
No, they've started playing basketball, so that's good, and singing and dancing, very important. But Emmy, who's my 7-year-old, has just decided it's not happening. And she's just, I think she knows we want, but not that we'd push it anyway. Whatever they want to do, they work away. I think Alex, the littler one, she's eager to get down. So unfortunately, all the nurseries are always on a Saturday, and of course I work every Saturday. So, but no, we'll get them. They did the cool camp. Well, Emmy did the cool camp last year.
Who were the stars? I suppose it was in Kildare, so it was obviously.
So Paddy Brophy would be, would be a Kildare, the Selbridge player. But they go to school in Leixlip because the girls' school is in Leixlip or Maynooth, so they're going to the local one in Leixlip. So that means any of their friends who'd be the influence, they're playing for Leixlip, whereas we live around it, you can't not go to your local. So that's causing issues.
I suppose it is important to start them young and stuff like that. My little cousin Megan, she had one of her first competitive games for ladies football. She's only, I think, 7 or 8, but she scored 6 goals.
Oh wow!
Against the local rivals as well. She's playing for Castleknock GAA.
We prodigy.
Hold on, she's playing for Castleknock.
Mr. Kieran Kilkenny won't be very happy to hear that, but watch out for her in the coming years.
Tell her to pop over to Bridget's.
Anyways,
Joanne, you were an anchor for the 2016 Olympics, and we all look back on it now, and
Crazy. Especially, I suppose, from your own perspective.
yeah. Michael Conlon, Pat Hickey.
Yeah,
Katie
like
Taylor.
it all just kind of. I suppose Katie Taylor losing as well, and then I suppose Michael Conlon, and then of course Pat Hickey.
I think Michael lost first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was first.
It was first, yeah.
when the news comes down, or obviously you're watching it as well, as you're watching it unfold, is it hard to keep a cap on things and make sure that you're reporting with a level head?
Well,
Yeah, it is, because you're surrounded by, and actually the boxing, no, probably not more, I was going to say more than others, no. People, when it's their sport, and probably when it's an Olympic sport as well in particular, because they're so close and they take everything to heart, like it means so much. You saw it with Neville Maxwell crying when the rowers, and he hadn't even realised that, because his sport doing well and it's the Irish people doing well means so much to them. And it's the same with the boxers. They feel so close to these fighters and these boxers, and they know them so well. So everything is charged emotionally in this, say in the bouts, if you're talking about the boxing. So yeah, it can be really, really hard, because if you're a sports fan as well, you get invested in it and you want. So it's really, really difficult. We have to try to, as it's going along, because you can't help it. You're going, oh, how has she not won that round, or how has he not won that round?
When you see the likes of Conlon's obviously now famous interview, like, you don't blame him and you don't begrudge him that kind of reaction, because you're feeling that as well, really.
Yes, the Michael one was really difficult because it was very obvious that he'd been done. I mean, like that, there was nobody who was gonna, and you're trying to add the balance, but it was clear as day. So it's difficult to get the other side when the other side doesn't quite seem accurate. Then it seems like you're being dishonest if you're trying to put forward a side that isn't a real side. The Katie one was different because it's 50-50 as to whether she was actually fairly beaten. And even in studio, and I know Michael Cruz wasn't happy when I pointed out that Kelly Harrington actually had believed that she had been probably just about being beaten. Katie herself doesn't think she was. She thinks she was hard done by.
Michael was quite adamant in his own towards the end of his own interview.
Michael Conlon.
Yeah.
Yes.
That Katie had been robbed as well.
Yeah. But he would have been. I mean, he wouldn't have been thinking rationally or logically. Bernard Dunn, he felt that she'd been hard done by, and Michael Cruz felt she'd been hard done by, but Kelly Harrington did not, and it definitely wasn't as clear cut. So you have to hang back and you just have to try, because that's my job. It's not my job to be a cheerleader and to go woohoo.
And when a story like Pat Hickey's arrest comes down the line, what's the atmosphere in the studio like? Is it shock?
I actually read something about this one, and I think you were just finishing up for the day. You were finally getting your break, and the news broke that Pat had been arrested. Obviously.
Oh yeah, yes. Actually, I'd forgotten about that. What it was it had followed the Michael Conlon and the Katie Taylor. So it had just been so mad. It's like bang, 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 bang. And those days are really long anyway. I think they're about 17 days on the trot, and there'd been at least 2 weeks solid prep work before it. And I hadn't quite, remember I said I get nervous when I haven't got enough. Well, I hadn't quite got the right amount of prep done that I'd wanted to. So the first 4 or 5 days, when I'd finished doing my broadcast, I'd go home, and once I put the kids to bed, I'd start prepping again, because I didn't feel I had enough done for the final few days of the broadcast. So I was just exhausted. And then you don't feel exhausted when you're in studio, because everything's on the go and it's fine. But after the rush of Michael Conlon, and then the rush of Katie Taylor, and Thomas was slightly after it, and then I'd finally got everything done. I was about to. You have to do your scripts in the morning before, because everything's happening all the time. So all my scripts in, I was on the go, and I was right. I just have to leg it down to makeup, get to studio. At last today, I'm going to get to just sit down and watch a bit of sport, because the golf was on, and there wasn't a huge amount else on. The golf was on. John McHenry, I adore John McHenry. He was going to be sitting in studio with me, and I was going to get to watch a couple of hours golf, and at least I could just sit down and enjoy it. Finished my scripts, press save, stood up to walk down. You go to makeup, and then you go to studio and start. And just as I stood up, somebody said, Pat Hickey's just been arrested. And I wanted to cry. It was my golf gone.
Well, speaking of Katie Taylor and Michael Conlon now, they're doing pretty well for themselves professionally. Would you be a big combat sports fan yourself?
A big what?
Combat sports?
I'm not a massive combat sport. I do love, particularly, I do like amateur boxing. Right. I do like it. If you're asking, do I like UFC?
Yeah.
No.
You won't be watching McGregor this Saturday.
No. No, I'm not.
6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, see, I'm working at 7 on Saturday morning, so I might just get up.
Just get up.
Up early. Yeah.
Right, we'll put all the broadcasting aside, all the athletics aside. How does Joanne Cantwell just unwind after a long day?
This is a good time for. We'll do a bit of the get to know you.
Yeah.
Joanne, tea or coffee?
I like both, but probably coffee. But I'm a wuss. I can't take caffeine. It's terrible. But I love the taste.
How do you take your coffee?
Skinny and decaf and fluffy.
Okay, yeah, I like those ones.
Not bad.
I get your approval.
Yeah, I'm fairly basic. I usually just take a cappuccino as is, nothing. Maybe like a sugar or two.
I made the mistake. I went to Tesco the other day with my brother. My brother is a bit of a prick, like, but he loves his coffee.
No, you can't say that. And he's not here. I was going to say national radio, any radio. He's not here to defend himself.
He's not going to listen to this anyways.
Doesn't matter.
Anyways, so we were looking for coffee anyways, and he spent like good 10-15 minutes like looking at all the packets, reading them, being like, oh, this is from such a place. And I was like, Ross, I don't care, just pick a coffee. And he's like, No. So we settled on Azir, you know, the Nescafe
Nescafe
Azir, but the Intenso. And I was like, well, why do we have to get the Intenso? Like, and he was like, I don't know, it's got this, it's got that. I went home and I had one thing. It was horrible. It was actually horrible.
Yeah, I wouldn't be much of a coffee snob now myself. I'd really kind of take it as it comes.
Americano if I need it, cappuccino if, I kind of need it, but cappuccino's nicer.
I don't even know what that is, what you just said.
Yeah.
Cappuccino.
No, the previous thing.
Americano.
That's just
Oh,
black
just an
coffee.
Americano.
Yeah.
I thought it had 3 extra things attached to it. I know what an Americano
Yeah.
is.
Funnily enough, when I had my first cup of coffee, I was working in a regional newspaper at the time. We'll leave it unnamed for the time. I was working in there as a summer when I was 16, and every 15 minutes, just be like, "Who's throwing on the kettle?" And someone like, there's only 4 people in the newsroom, like, but I must have a cup of coffee every half hour. My first 2 weeks in there, I'd go home bouncing off the walls.
If it's like that in the newsroom of a local paper, what's it like in an RT studio? There must be coffee going all the time.
No, not necessarily. I actually don't like drinking caffeine when I'm on air because it does make me bouncy, and I don't like that. I don't like being jittery when I'm on air. No, you have to kind of stagger it around, because if you're in studio for 5 hours, you don't want to be drinking too much.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's true, actually. Yeah, very good point.
How far is the bathroom from your usual studio for Saturday Sport?
I can make it. If I run, I can make it in about 25 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's not, the radio centre's not very big.
Yeah, it's fair. We've got a tour. We've had a tour.
Yeah, we did actually get a tour during the during the interview that we got a tour with Dave?
No, I think we extended the interview.
Okay, yeah. And if you were to take a drink stronger than tea or coffee,
I don't.
You don't?
Yeah.
No, at all.
No.
Did
I can't even do coffee. Never mind alcohol.
Did you ever, Joanne, or was it just kind of like a lifestyle thing? I suppose with playing senior football with Dublin at the time, and
No. I tried it and it never appealed to me in any way. I've come to the conclusion, actually, it's probably because I'm a control freak, and the idea of
just like to
losing
stay.
any form of control
Yeah,
whatsoever would that's why I'm sure you're looking for cool, fun college stories. You're not going to get any from me. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Look.
Well, one of your big hobbies, I'm led to believe, is travelling. You're quite fond of travelling.
I have 2 children. I
was
was
going to say, how does that factor into it nowadays?
Don't depress
Are you that
me now.
person with like a million bags and crying babies and?
Yes.
Okay.
Not crying babies, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we go away obviously in kind of end December, start January now, because I
That's
can't
the
go away.
quiet period
I can't
for
go
you,
away
yeah.
during the summer. But pre-children, we used to love to travel to New Zealand in particular, or somewhere in the States.
Would that be the favourite place that you've been
New
to?
Zealand, yeah. Lovely places in Australia as well. Great places in America. I mean, the whole world, as if I've been there. But anywhere I've been, it's been great because everywhere's so different.
If we could hand you a plane ticket now for the morning, where would it be to?
Yeah, I'd go back to New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Any time I'd go back to New Zealand in a heartbeat. Yeah.
So let's say 3 guests for a dinner party. Would you be able to pick out 3?
Jeez,
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive.
Joe Brolly, Pat Spillane and Colin Moore.
Well, you give me examples of who you'd pick and I'd have a think.
I'd have Paul Galvin there for the crack.
Yeah.
Roy Keane.
I'd have the 2 Gallagher brothers. And then I don't care who the second one is, or who the fourth one is, because that'll just
A referee.
provide enough. And
Yeah,
a
a
referee
referee,
actually, yeah.
So, are you an Oasis fan?
Massive.
Oh, don't start him off.
Were you born during the?
I was born in '99. I didn't really get into them. Sorry, John. I didn't really get into them until I was about in TY, so they'd well split up by that stage. But yeah, I'm living in hope that they'll reform at some point. I did go to see both of them earlier on this year. Noel was in the 3 Arena in May, and Liam was in Malahide Castle in June. So I did actually I've seen Noel twice. I have actually seen both of them live.
And
Just
who do you
waiting to see
think
them
is better?
together. I don't really have a preference. A lot of people, when they find out I'm a Oasis fan, they ask me who I prefer. I actually don't really have a preference. I like both nearly equally. If based on their last 2 albums, I do prefer Liam's album to Noel's. But overall, I think they're just both hilarious and actually very good musicians. So
We could just leave and he go on for another hour.
Yeah, it's going to turn into an Oasis podcast.
Would you be a music fan yourself?
No, I'm not a massive music. I always loved Crowded House, which again was before your time, and Neil Finn, who'd be their lead singer. But no, I'm not a massive music fan.
And then film, anything, like what would you fill your spare time with usually?
Oh, books and movies. I love movies. Yeah, really love them. Do you ever do? So your Santry would be like your local, the Omniplex.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Omni,
Is
yeah.
that an Odeon?
No, I think it's an IMC, is it?
Okay, because
Not
there's an
sure.
Odeon in Blanchardstown, and they do a thing called Screen Unseen. Every now and then, where they have a movie that's not out yet, and you pay a fiver, you go, and you've no idea what you're going to go see. So it could be anything. What was it? We went to see Black 47, which I never would have gone to see. That's the one, the
one
revenge
about the-
movie set in the
Yeah,
family,
yeah, of course,
which
yeah.
I never would have gone to see. And that's why I love those things, because it
Mm.
gets you to watch movies you wouldn't personally go to see.
So
And then
like
it can
any favourite film, favourite book?
Favourite book, it's so stereotypical. I love Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre.
Yeah, I love it. I also, and I've only read it once, there's a book called Parade's End, which I love as well. It's actually a sequence of 5 books.
And then film then, any particular favourites?
To be a wussy girl, I love While You Were Sleeping. You probably weren't born when that was out either. No, that's Sandra Bullock. That's a real rom-com. That's a real girly movie.
I love that
yeah.
Sandra Bullock though.
Oh, she's brilliant, isn't she? Yeah, I'd watch anything with Sandra Bullock in it, pretty much, yeah.
Moving it off slightly.
Yeah.
Joanne, did you have any role models, I suppose, especially in the media industry growing up?
No, there was nobody. There was no one person. There are lots of different people that even now I still like to kind of learn and see how different people do it. But there was never one person who I kind of said, yes, that is the person. Mind you, since I started, if there was anybody who would inspire me more than anybody, it would be Ger Canning. His work ethic. He's been doing this for so long. And he still works harder, I'd say, than anybody. He was,
He was, I think it was during the summer, I remember listening to him, because obviously the World Cup was on, and he did a bit of commentary to RT, and then the GA was on, and he was doing commentary for that as well. Like,
and I bet he knew all of them inside out. He works so hard. And it's actually difficult when you've been doing something for a long time to keep on doing the same level of work, which is required no matter how long you're doing it. And Ger still does, and that's why. So I always try to think of Ger anytime I'm kind of losing my way. I think of Ger and how much he works.
I remember growing up, like Joe Canning was just coming to prominence, and obviously you had Ger Canning. And not growing up, but like I don't know. Like,
I hope the camera is catching Joanne's facial expressions, because every time Colin opens his mouth.
No, go on. You just make me feel
no,
ancient.
I just kept
Go
on
on.
getting mixed up between the two, and I thought that Ger Canning was the hurler and Joe Canning was the commentator.
All
That's
right.
it.
You were only a baby when he was...
I wasn't a baby. When did Joe come to prominence?
Jeez.
Joe came to prominence around kind of 09-ish, I'd say, 09, 10.
Yeah, I would
No,
think-
probably
I was-
slightly later. Probably more like 10.
Yeah, it was like 11. Forgive me for that.
It's very forgivable.
Joanne, now you've been involved in inclusive sport initiatives for children with disabilities. How did you get involved in that?
Really simple. This is Cara. I do very little with them. I should really do more. They asked if I would just help them out with a few bits and pieces, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I looked them up and they sounded brilliant. So yeah.
And what exactly do they do specifically?
They help. It's not just children. They help. They help people with severe disabilities to be able to still keep active. They're based down in Tralee, in the IT in Tralee, so that's what it's about. It's just making sure everybody's able to keep active regardless of their level of ability.
Brilliant.
Very good. So I suppose we've kind of come towards a natural...
Oh no, I have another one.
Oh, do you have?
Yeah, I have
okay,
another
go
one.
on.
Oh, it looks like it's a doozy.
It's oh,
You never know what's
You
going to
never know what you, Greg.
You never know what's going to come out of Greg's mouth, so...
I hear Des Cal's an awful gossip.
you stop reading Mary Hannigan's article. Who's listening to this? No, it's more that it's not that he's a gossip. It's I take after my father in that everything goes over my head. Like there could be things going on and I know nothing that's ever going on, and it's fine. I don't mind that. That's grand. Whereas Des tends to know a lot of what's going on. So we'd be having a chat on a Saturday, or we'd be chatting during the week or whatever, and he'd mention something to do with something, and I wouldn't even know the person. It's some big story that everybody's apparently
Oh, is
talking
that
about.
how you found out you were going to get the Sunday game?
No. But he could be talking, but it wouldn't be gossip. He'd be talking about something that's actually going on. But I'm oblivious to almost everything. So it's more that I do his head in, because he'll mention something to do with some big story, and I won't even know the people he's talking about, never mind the story, and he'll just go, oh, Jesus, Joanne, come on. So no, it's not that he's a gossip, it's that I'm the exact opposite. I never know what's going on.
Well, before we wrap up, Joanne, we always have to ask our guests any advice, words of wisdom you can pass on to DCU students.
3
maybe listening.
C's.
Or does it have to be 3?
No.
Oh no, sorry.
If it's for our line of work, it is, I've already said, prep. No matter how long you're in it, work really hard. Listen. It's so important. So many people, when they're in this situation, doing what you are doing, they're doing an interview and they're afraid they're going to run out of questions, so they're just trying to think of their questions. They have them in front and they're not listening to what their interviewee is saying. And some of the best things you get is from what your interviewee says. If you can pick up on something they say and you can lead it somewhere. And the third one is ask. Don't be afraid to ask for opportunities. And I have learned that from seeing other people do it as opposed to from my having done it. Yeah.
So will you put a word into RT for us then, yeah?
Maybe for 1 or 2. I don't know about all 3 of you now.
And that's directed
I
at
love
Greg.
Was it?
I'm the oldest here. I've got seniority.
Right, I think we've come to the end of the interview. Joanne, thank you for being a lovely guest. We hope you enjoyed your in conversation with experience.
Our first guest in the new studio as well.
First guest in the new studio,
that's
so that's something.
That's a little milestone.
Also, my first proper interview since I was made the next Sunday game.
Boom, exclusive. And that's how we're going to wrap up. This has been In Conversation with for another week. Thank you very, very much for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Slán go fóill.
Perfect. John, that was great. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very much.
It is, I've been avoiding them like the plague. I've been going, oh. I've been going, oh. I've been going, oh. I've been going, oh. I've been going,